Before the chapters begin, here's a short intro to set the tone. Live shows are the heart of rock music. They are where emotion, power, and real connection come together. And even legends like Jon Bon Jovi keep learning, even after decades on stage. In this story, Jon Bon Jovi finally reveals a surprising lesson he learned from someone fans never expected: Metallica's drummer, Lars Ulrich. These two rock icons come from different worlds. Bon Jovi is polished, melodic, emotional. Metallica is heavy, aggressive, and raw. But one backstage moment changed everything for Jon. A single piece of advice from Lars opened his eyes, challenged his confidence, and transformed the way he performs in front of millions. This is the story Jon himself says he never forgot. And once you hear it, you'll never look at live concerts the same way again. Jon Bon Jovi had performed thousands of shows by the time he reached the early 2000s. He had seen massive crowds, stadium lights, roaring fans, and moments most musicians only dream about. But on one particular night, something felt off. He walked onto the stage, looked around, and even though the crowd was loud and ready, he sensed something missing. Jon later admitted that he felt like he wasn't fully there. He was singing the songs, hitting the notes, talking to the audience, but it was almost like he was performing on autopilot. When the show ended, the band celebrated as usual, but Jon kept thinking about that feeling. Why didn't the show feel alive? Why did he feel disconnected? And more importantly, what was he not seeing? That night, Jon found himself in a backstage lounge where several artists were hanging out after performing at the same festival. And among them was Lars Ulrich, the powerhouse drummer of Metallica. Jon respected Metallica deeply. He knew their energy, their passion, and their legendary live shows that seemed to shake the earth itself. Lars walked in, sweaty, pumped, full of adrenaline from Metallica's set. When Jon saw the fire in Lars's eyes, real, raw, electric, he realized something. Metallica had played with intensity, but Jon? He wondered if he had lost some of his own. This first moment of awareness set the stage for a conversation that would completely change Jon's approach to performing. And Jon never imagined that the lesson he was looking for was standing right there, walking toward him with a towel around his neck and drumsticks still in his hands. Jon Bon Jovi approached Lars Ulrich with a friendly smile. He expected a casual conversation, maybe a quick compliment about Metallica's set. But what he saw up close surprised him. Lars wasn't just excited. He wasn't just happy about the performance. He was vibrating with a kind of energy that Jon hadn't felt in himself in a long time. Lars talked with intensity, moving his hands, reliving moments from the show as if they had just happened inside his chest. He described the crowd, the mistakes, the risks, and the feeling of pushing himself past the edge. Jon listened quietly, almost studying him. Lars wasn't being dramatic. This was simply who he was, a performer who gave everything every single night. Jon later said that in that moment, he realized something important. He had let routine creep into his own shows. He had mastered the craft, the polish, the professionalism. But somewhere along the way, some of the fire had faded, the kind Metallica still carried like a weapon. So Jon asked Lars a simple question. How do you keep this kind of energy after so many years? Lars laughed at first, thinking Jon was joking. But when he saw Jon was serious, he paused. He wiped his face, took a deep breath, and leaned in slightly, as if he was about to give away a secret he didn't share often. This was the beginning of the lesson Jon would remember forever. And in that tight backstage space, filled with distant crowd noise, sweating musicians, and the smell of amps cooling down, Jon Bon Jovi was about to hear something that would shake him much harder than any applause ever could. Lars looked Jon directly in the eyes. He didn't joke. He didn't exaggerate. He spoke with raw honesty, the kind that hits hard because it comes from experience. Jon, he said, the second you start performing for the crowd, you lose. Jon didn't understand at first. Wasn't performing for the crowd the whole point of a live show? They were the ones buying tickets, cheering, screaming, waiting to hear their favorite songs. but Lars continued before Jon could respond. "You don't play for them," Lars said. "You play with them. If they're not part of it, if you don't let them shape the show, then you're just doing the same thing every night, and every night becomes the same." Jon felt something shift in him. Lars wasn't talking about technique or set lists or stage tricks. He was talking about connection. Real, unpredictable connection. Metallica never played the same show twice. Lars said the band fed off the crowd, shaped the tempo, changed the mood, adjusted the energy based on what the audience gave them. Then he said the words Jon couldn't forget. "If you ever feel like you're on autopilot, the crowd already felt it before you did." That line struck Jon deeply, because that was exactly what happened earlier that night. He had been on autopilot, even if he didn't want to admit it, and Lars wasn't done. "Your job isn't to perform perfectly," he said. "Your job is to make the moment impossible to repeat." Jon stood silently, letting the words sink in. Lars had described the very thing he felt he had lost, and now Jon knew he had a choice. Keep performing the same way, or change everything. After the conversation, Jon returned to his hotel room, but he couldn't sleep. Lars's words replayed in his mind like a chorus stuck on loop. "If you're on autopilot, the crowd already felt it before you did." Jon recognized that truth immediately. He began thinking about recent shows. They were good, great even. Fans loved them, critics praised them, the band sounded tight. But Jon realized that great had become normal, predictable, safe. He thought about the way he walked on stage, same smile, same gestures, same stories between songs. He was delivering what the fans expected, but not pushing himself beyond that. Jon remembered their early days, when everything felt dangerous and wild, when every show was a fight for survival, when the band didn't know if the crowd would love them or hate them. That uncertainty used to fuel him. It used to make every performance feel like the only one that mattered. But with fame came comfort, and with comfort came routine. Jon wondered, had I stopped taking risks without even noticing? He felt a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. Pride because he had become consistent. Embarrassment because consistency had become a cage. The truth was simple. Jon Bon Jovi hadn't felt truly alive on stage in a long time. And Lars had seen through it immediately because he lived the opposite. Chaos, intensity, passion, unpredictability. That night, Jon pulled out a notebook, the same kind he used to write songs in. Instead of lyrics, he wrote a question. How do I break the routine? Tomorrow, he would start finding the answer. The next morning, Jon woke up with a new kind of focus. The conversation with Lars wasn't just stuck in his mind. It was challenging him, almost provoking him. Jon knew he had to understand the deeper meaning behind Lars's words. Make the moment impossible to repeat. That line echoed again and again. Jon realized something important. Metallica treated every show like a living thing. Something that changed shape nightly, something dangerous, emotional, real. For them, a show wasn't a performance. It was a battle, a storm, an explosion. Jon, on the other hand, had built his shows to be smooth, polished, reliable. He delivered hit after hit with precision, but maybe he had polished away some of the magic. He remembered watching Metallica once from side stage. Their songs felt heavier live. Not because of volume, but because of commitment. Kirk bent over his guitar like he was wrestling it. James roared like every lyric was happening to him in that moment. Lars pounded the drums like he was trying to break them on purpose. Jon realized the truth. Metallica didn't play their songs. They lived them every night. Jon wanted that feeling back. He also finally understood what Lars meant about playing with the crowd instead of for them. When Metallica shifted the tempo, changed a riff, held a note longer, or played a section differently, the crowd reacted instantly. It was a conversation, loud, chaotic, and powerful. Jon saw the difference. He had been giving the audience a show. Metallica invited the audience into the show. And that was the important lesson Jon realized he had been missing. Now Jon was ready to experiment, and the first test would come sooner than he expected.